It's the Pikachu Project.
Hello and welcome back to the Pikachu Project, a spoiler-filled re-ranking of all 22 Pokemon movies. I am one of your two expert hosts. My name is Gigi. I have seen every episode of the Pokemon anime.
And I'm Walex, your co-host. I am a doctor and a big Pikachu fan.
And that is his particular expertise. So, to summarize very briefly, in 2015 we watched all the Pokemon movies that were out at the time and we ranked them. We watched them in chronological order, the order that they came out. We have decided that due to this whole virus thing and us having a lot of free time, we should re-watch the movies and re-rank them. This time we are watching them in our previous rank order and seeing if we want to change any of their places. We are only including Pikachu Project movies, so no Detective Pikachu, no special Pokemon shorts, nothing of that sort. No Pokemon Live, the musical, although we might watch that anyway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything to add before we get into it?
Should we let them know what has been happening so far in the podcast? So,
yes.
Yeah, we've ranked 3 movies that were previously at the bottom of our list. They were Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea, Pokemon 2000, and Genesect and The Legend Awakened. And our ranking based on what we had so far was still that. We're going to have it.
Yeah.
The best of those 3 is Genesect and The Legend Awakened, followed by Pokemon 2000. And at the bottom, in its own tier, is Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea.
Yeah. We did shift around the tiers a little bit, but yeah, so far it's stayed the same. We'll have to see if that continues to be the case. One last thing I want to say is that I am always impressed that you can remember the names of the movies because I have enormous difficulty remembering their names. And just as a little tidbit, I want to say that our new proposal for the name of Pokemon the movie 2000, which is the one with Lugia and all the birds, is Angry Birds.
Yeah, Angry Birds.
Because that is what the movie's about.
Yeah.
So, anyway, let's get into our movies for this week.
Mm-hmm.
The first movie that we watched for this week was Pokemon the movie, Hoopa and the Clash of Ages.
Yeah. So
Clash of Ages. Very sorry. Pokemon the movie, Hoopa and the Clash of Ages.
I mean, it would be fun if it was a Class of Ages, where it was just all of the legendaries that show up in this movie, which is all of them, and they're just all in a class together.
With Ash as the teacher.
Yeah. So, as always, we will start off with a summary of this movie. So this is again, like further up in the rankings from the other 3 that we had, but was pretty close to the bottom. What basically happens in this movie, this is an XY generation movie, so it's Ash, Serena, Clement, and Bonnie are in the middle of the desert for unknown reasons. And then they run into...
the famous desert in France? The
yeah.
giant desert in France?
Yeah. They are in the middle of the French desert. And... they get pulled into a magical hole out of nowhere, and it turns out it's a little creature, mythical Pokemon named Hoopa, and he says, "Are you surprised?" When he pulls them over. And it turns out this Pokemon, which at the start of the movie you get an introduction, in ancient past was a giant really powerful Pokemon, this genie-looking guy who literally smacks down all the legendary Pokemon just to show he can, including Palkia, Dialga, and Kyogre, Groudon. But now what we see today is a little sprite creature, and he makes a hole and makes a bunch of Pikachus come out, which is maybe the only important thing in this movie, including all of the dressed up Pikachu from Oras anyway. And his caretakers, one of whose is named maybe Mireille and the other one is named something else, these 2 guys go "Oh, sorry for Hoopa pranking you guys. This is our buddy kid brother, Hoopa." And they say
Baraz and Mireille.
Yeah, Baraz and Mireille. I got one of them.
Yeah, I couldn't remember their names.
Well, actually, it was just Mireille who's there. And then Baraz flies in and is I got the bottle, the chain bottle, the trapping bottle, which he immediately uncorks because he has evil red eyes, and this turns Hoopa into a big bad Hoopa again, and Hoopa starts destroying everything. And so they manage to get the bottle open again and suck all of the evil back into Hoopa, back from
prison
Hoopa,
bottle.
the prison bottle, yeah. And so they're like, we were hoping that Hoopa could, be its true form without destroying everything, but I guess we still can't do that. And so that they go hang out in the city for a little while to try to figure out how to get things better. And then Team Rocket shows up and then tries to steal the prison bottle. And in doing so, Meowth opens up the bottle again. And then Hoopa becomes a huge creature again and starts destroying everything. Or actually, that's not true. What actually happens is Hoopa tries to struggle to try to not blow up everything and turn into a big monster, and in doing so ejects the evil portion of himself out as a big shadow ghost large Hoopa, while he remains a little Hoopa, and he's like, I did it. So now we have a big shadow Hoopa who is this anger, who is trying to make little Hoopa disappear. And so now ensues a chase in which Ash and little Hoopa and Mireille and Baraz
and Serena and Clement and Bonnie,
and are trying to run away from the big Hoopa who is destroying everything. And in the meantime, they're trying to create a new prison bottle because the prison bottle blew up after it was opened that last time, so that they can recapture the evil Hoopa so that the little Hoopa will not be killed. In the meantime, Ash is trying to hide little Hoopa from him. So there's this chase through the city, and eventually the big Hoopa finds little Hoopa and is like, I'm going to kill you. And little Hoopa's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to summon a legendary Pokemon, and summons Lugia. And then summons, shortly afterwards, Mega Rayquaza, Latios, and Latias. And then Hoopa's like, I'm going to summon Dialga, Palkia, Groudon, Kyogre, Reshiram, and Zekrom, and Kyurem. And they all have a big old legendary bash while Ash is trying to hide. They're trying to make new prison bottle by combining the powers of fire from Braixen, water from Frogadier, and earth with this friendly hippopotas, which Bonnie just recruits and befriends. And then they eventually create a new prison bottle and they create a new prison bottle, and just in time before Hoopa destroys the building and destroys everything, manage to capture Hoopa again, I think. That's how it goes. But as they're celebrating the fact that little Hoopa is safe from the anger, the space-time continuum. And I wish there was a better way of transitioning. It was pretty abrupt in the movie. Yeah. The space-time continuum starts collapsing around the tower because there's too many legendaries there.
Yeah.
And the only way to save everyone is to have Hoopa teleport everybody outside the break in the space-time continuum. And so Hoopa is released again, and this time he's able to control it because over the journey he was able to understand himself a little bit better. But he can't escape himself, so he is able to teleport everybody through the hoops. I hope I made that clear that that's his power. Teleport everybody outside of the space-time continuum. Hoopa tries to do that, but he can't go through his own hoop until he believes in himself. And there's a lot of flashbacks throughout the entire movie about him not feeling like he's a part of the family or something, and then Ash and his family really do help him push through that hoop and get out of the place, and it's really heartwarming because now Hoopa feels like himself. But they couldn't have done it without a last-minute intervention by Arceus, who stops the space-time continuum just long enough for Hoopa to believe in himself and escape. That's the movie.
Yeah, and then Hoopa helps to rebuild the big tower that got destroyed.
Yeah, like kind of a Dubai-looking tower. I forgot the Raj.
I can't remember.
I don't know what it's called in Dubai.
I don't know what it's called. Definitely, I don't know what it's called in the movie. Dahara Tower. That's what it's called.
Dahara Tower.
Dahara Tower or Dahara Tower. I don't know.
So why don't we talk about what we thought about this movie before?
Yeah. So this movie was ranked. This one we actually had ranked slightly differently before. I had it actually under the Genesect movie in our old list. But we compromised and said, maybe Genesect is worse, and we watched that one last week. But and then Alex had it above the Genesect movie. But both of them, it was pretty low. And I think the reason being that it was really largely just an excuse to have as many legendary Pokemon on screen at the same time as possible, which was fun, but like that's kind of it. There is there is a plot. There's honestly more plot than I remember, but it's kind of really secondary to seeing Ash ride around on Latios and seeing all the legendaries attacking each other.
All I have to add to that is it's just really feels like pure id, just a kids movie, in the sense that it's really simple themes. It's just really a lot of repetitive hooks, like Hoopa always going, "Are you surprised? Hoopa can do anything!" Just trying to get the kids running around and yelling that as much as possible, kind of a thing. Which
I think I don't remember if this was your comparison, but I think it works too. It's kind of like Axe Cop, if you're familiar with Axe Cop, very much written by a 6-year-old who's the best Pokemon movie would be if Latios and Latias got to fight Kyurem and
and Hoopa is able to teleport everything, but he can't teleport himself.
Yeah,
that's his fatal flaw. It's really a movie written by a really precocious 5 or 10-year-old, who knows.
Yeah
More like 5, I'd say.
So it's really fun to watch in that way, but it does kind of end up being a little bit flimsy otherwise. So that's pretty much why it was ranked so low. I don't think, as with some of the lower movies, I don't think I had too many particular complaints, other than there were a lot of points during the movie where I was like, why is this happening? It's a little unclear why this is happening. What? And, I don't want to, put a magnifying glass to Pokemon movies, although I guess that's kind of what we're doing.
Yeah.
But, there were maybe a few too many moments of, but why didn't they just do this?
Especially compared to the Genesect movie, and I can see why we were thinking about this before. The Genesect movie, by comparison, looks like the makers were actual filmmakers who went to who understood storytelling, suspense, trying to set things up, use a Chekhov's gun here and there or something like that. Whereas the Hoopa movie definitely seems like it was written in a fever dream, like a child.
Yeah. So watching it again, I will say that there are a number of things that I viscerally enjoy. I think Alex feels the same way about this movie. My particular thing that I love is when the space-time continuum is collapsing for the first time and they realize that's going on. The first thing Ash does is go, "Pikachu, use Thunderbolt!
Let's go!"
And Pikachu attacks the space-time continuum with a Thunderbolt. It doesn't work.
No.
In other cases it might. It doesn't actually work this time.
Yeah. Another movie in this very podcast, we'll talk about defeating the space-time continuum by using Ice Beam, apparently. But,
but that's for later. But that's one of my personal favorite movies. I also think Hoopa's kind of cute.
I think Hoopa's really cute.
I think people tend to think that because a lot of these movies have small mythical Pokemon saying cute lines over and over again in a high-pitched voice. That's a common theme. And I think sometimes it's irritating, but I think more often than not it's actually kind of cute and people are kind of harsh on it. So I think Hoopa is cute. Hoopa loves donuts, which is cute because they're rings. His rings. It's it's pretty sweet, and he has some genuine pathos,
and there's a lot of humor, here and there. They're not donuts, they're donut shaped macarons or something not macarons, they're donut shaped pastries or something like that.
Are they, or are they just donuts?
No, Serena makes donut shaped something. I forgot, which is terrible. There's a lot of humor to it.
The hippopotas. You should talk about the hippopotas.
Everybody remembers the magical moment in which, and meaning us two, because I don't know anybody else who's ever watched this movie other than us two and our friend Christine.
Shout out to Christine.
Where Bonnie recruits hippopotas in like Hoopa creates a hoop. He goes to like this little family of hippopotas, and she just yanks a hippopotas in there, and the hippopotas is like, yeah, I'll come along. And like you can like watch the hippopotas's face throughout the entire movie as it's just, you know, very friendly and cooperative in saving the world. It's like, you know, this is really reasonable.
Yeah, it's very calm.
Yeah, it's very calm. It's not really alarmed. It's seeing all these legendaries and going like, wow, that sure is something.
Yeah. And it's also great because the kind of like premise is that in order to recreate the prison bottle, we need to have the powers of, what is it, fire, water, and ground.
Yeah.
And they could have made it be like, well, Alex said this before, like they could have made it be fire, water,
and
lightning, or fire, water, and grass, or like something that the characters already have a Pokemon of.
Yeah, like Dedenne, for example, being a great lightning one, like, you know, especially since like most of the trios in Pokemon are fire, water, and lightning, like the Articunos.
But it almost feels like they went out of their way to make it a Pokemon type that none of them had, so they had to go get this hippopotas.
Yeah, from like the outskirts of town.
Yeah.
Not even like a Hippowdon, like, or an evolved one, just like a small child who they borrowed.
Very cooperative.
Yeah, cooperatively marches along and helps them
and then
out.
at the end of the movie, they just drop him back off.
Yeah, and he just goes back to sleep. Everybody's just waking up in the morning. And he's like, you guys can't imagine what morning I had.
Yeah,
to all these other hippopotases.
Yeah. Also, it seems that everyone in this big city, because a lot of these Pokemon movies are in a big city that are unlike any big cities you see in the main show. It seems that everyone sleeps through all this stuff. Like, we've got, you know, Pokemon, legendary Pokemon, like, left and right attacking buildings and stuff, and then, like...
Yeah,
I don't know. There's not really that many concerned citizens running around.
Yeah.
I guess there's some in this movie, actually.
A few react.
There's like a small amount at the end when Hoopa has to like evacuate everyone through the rings.
Yeah,
but they're all very calm.
Yeah,
they're all just very calmly walking through in lines, in orderly lines.
Yeah, and the evacuation was very good, very safe, and like, very effective. Seems.
Yeah, and there's really not, for the size of the city, really not that many people.
No, yeah.
I think the last thing I want to say that we both love about this movie is, as Alex said, he summons, or Hoopa, the evil shadow Hoopa, summons Kyogre, Groudon,
Dialga,
Palkia,
Reshiram,
Zekrom, and Kyurem. So all of these guys are flying in the air, except Groudon is just walking around like a dumb small Godzilla, like the whole time.
Very small Godzilla.
Very small Godzilla. And like there's some great shots where like you see all these majestic like legendary Pokemon flying in the air, and then Groudon's just like halfway submerged in the water, just standing there.
Yeah, at some point, like Kyurem, who's on the same side as Groudon, hits him with an ice beam
for no reason.
No reason at all, other than just Groudon, just sit down. Yeah, sit down, Groudon.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. So yeah, I think my experience watching it again was just remembering that there were more lines in that movie than I remember there being.
Yeah, there was more plot, like I said, more plot, more lines. Less of it was actually just the legendary Pokemon fighting, although that was a lot of it.
Yeah, but the highlights pretty much remain the same to me, which is the hippopotas, the like kind of humor here and there, and the kind of like I don't know, like lightheartedness in this really silly movie.
Yeah.
Where he ejects his evil and literally, it's really silly.
Yeah. So re-ranking. Are you gonna re-rank this movie, Alex?
Yeah, I think that when I originally ranked this, I said that, like viscerally, like it's like really high up for me, like hilariously high up on like my visceral enjoyment list, like the kind that I would make people watch just because it's a really silly movie.
Yeah.
But I could not in like good conscience put it above like a lot of other movies on this list. And now I actually think that I can, in good conscience, say that it's a better movie than the Genesect movie. Which was its immediate superior, I think, in the original list. I still agree that it's better than Pokemon 2000 Pokemon Ranger.
Yeah.
It's, way too entertaining to be in, like, anywhere near those.
Yeah.
But, I think that it's in the same tier as Pokemon 2000 and Genesect movie, but above both of them in that tier. And Pokemon Ranger is in its own tier at the bottom.
Yeah. I agree. I am also placing it above the Genesect movie now. I really think I I did not remember how much plot there actually was to this movie. Like Alex said, there's like some very heartwarming like flashbacks and stuff to like Hoopa's friendship with Mirai and Baraz.
Yeah.
And their great grandfather who like was the one who, you know, helped Hoopa escape from his like evil self and stuff and taught him the ways of the world. And it really is very sweet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think easily the best kids movie on this list. Like if I had like a very small child, I would be happy to show them this movie. It's got a lot of like running around.
Maybe not that small of a child. I could see them getting scared too.
That's true.
You know.
Okay.
There's definitely a lot of legendary Pokemon attacking each other.
Yeah. But like, you know, the catchphrase is like, "Were you surprised?" Shows up in the credits song, which is hilarious.
Yeah, it's really silly.
Like, "Tell me, were you surprised? Make my wish come true."
Yeah.
And it's like one of the best, like, I cannot believe that this is the credits song, which is like an enjoyable experience in a lot of like, you know, Pokemon movies, is to listen to the credits song where they like force the title of the movie into the credits. And in this one they forced like this really terrible like recurring line into the credits song, which is pretty good. So yeah, I think that on the strength of it's like, you know, heartwarming plot and like lighthearted, like, you know, just good vibes like all around in this movie.
Maybe we should take some time during one of these episodes to talk about the credits songs, because I feel like they're kind of their own thing, and they kind of exist in quality separate from the movie.
That's true.
Like the Pokemon 2000 credits, like you've got like Donna Summers singing "The Power of One." It's like very good. So maybe that should be a separate, a special episode.
There's a lot
where we discuss all the songs, but yeah, I think.
Yeah, I'm happy to put it above the Genesect movie, which puts it at the top of the list that we have so far.
Yeah, which is pretty amazing. Hoopa Ring.
Hoopa Ring. Ale Hoopa Ring. Yes, we're just, I'm a child.
It's very quotable.
It's very quotable.
Okay. So, you ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah. So, the next movie was ranked higher than the Hoopa movie. And so, this is the order we're going in. It is Pokemon Heroes, Latios, and Latias. And so, you know, it kind of demonstrates the strength of this format of going, you know, from our previous list, because this movie and the Hoopa movie, despite being next to each other, were very far from each other in terms of when we watched it, like on the order of like weeks to months.
Yeah, this was the fifth Pokemon movie, and the Hoopa movie was the 18th, so probably months apart we watched these.
Yeah.
You want to give a brief summary? You really are better at that than I would be. So
I'm trying to like make it more brief, but you know, some of these twist and turn.
Yeah.
So I feel like the first summary I do every podcast episode is going to go longer, and I'm just going to get exhausted.
That's fine.
So, Pokemon Heroes, Latios, and Latias take Ash and friends, and these are Ash, Misty, and Brock, I guess. Yeah, the Johto crew. Ash, Misty, and Brock to fake Venice, Alto Mare in Johto, where they are quickly introduced to the legends of the city's protectors, Latios and Latias, while they're like, you know, having some fun, doing some island races and stuff like that. And so they go on this tour, and at some point they run into this mysterious girl who doesn't talk, and they save her, and then she like runs away, and Ash chases her like really far, and
because like, she's getting attacked.
Sorry.
She's getting attacked by these two Team Rocket members named Annie and Oakley. In the classic Team Rocket way of naming people.
Sorry. So she gets attacked, and then she runs away, and then Ash chases her.
And the reason that she's getting attacked is that she is Latias. We do know that at this point in the movie. Okay. Because Annie and Oakley are seeking the Soul Dew, which is I don't know, a big important gem that they want for Team Rocket. And they think, well, we can capture Latios and Latias as well. Latias can shapeshift into a human. So she's walking around the city, but they have some crazy technology that tells them that this is Latias. And
that crazy technology is like a thermal camera that shows that Latias is cooler than regular humans.
They say that it has a cooler body temperature than other humans. So
there's also a camera that like lets them see that it's just a little Latias like walking around.
Yeah, that's really cute. Anyway,
So Ash chases her. not knowing why she was attacked or anything, to this mysterious park in which he gets attacked by a Latios, and it's like, whoa, it's a Latios. And then Latios' friends, Bianca, and this guy who I'm just gonna call Mario because he looks kind of like Mario.
His name is Lorenzo, but he's clearly meant to like nod to Mario. He has a red t-shirt and blue overalls, and that's his outfit.
Yeah. So
and he's Italian, so
Lorenzo and Bianca are like, "Hey, Latios, calm down. Like, we're friends here." And then Latias is like, "Hey, I was this this mysterious girl. I was actually Latias the whole time." And Ash goes like, "Ah!"
Yeah, and Ash was confused because he saw Bianca walking around, and Latias likes to look like Bianca because they're best friends.
Yeah, right.
Like you do with your best friend.
Yeah. God. Bianca has hair that looks kind of like a Latias.
Yeah.
And at first you think that that's just because Latias isn't good at disguising its hair, but apparently Bianca just likes to look like Latias for fun.
I guess it's mutual.
Yeah. Anyway, so they meet Latias and Latios in this park, and Ash gets to see the Soul Dew, and Mario Lorenzo is like, no one must ever touch the Soul Dew, otherwise the water will disappear from this city and all sorts of bad things will happen. But Annie and Oakley, who had attacked Latias earlier, snuck a little camera and found out this is where they're keeping the Soul Dew. And so soon Ash leaves and says like, "Hey, it was nice meeting you guys," and stuff. And then Annie and Oakley like get on the scene and attack Latias and Latios, capturing Latios and stealing the Soul Dew and taking it to this museum where there's this powerful Alto Mare defense mechanism, DMF or something. I don't remember what it stands for. Which
DMA, Defense Mechanism of Alto Mare.
Yeah, where
we have Bulbapedia pulled up for reference.
Which we were introduced to earlier in the movie. And they're like, we're gonna use the Soul Dew in the DMA, and then it'll make us powerful, or at least Oakley feels that way.
Yeah.
Annie's just like, this is a cool gem, and we'll steal it for Team Rocket.
And meanwhile, Latias escapes.
Yeah.
And she shows up in the hotel room, Pokemon Center room, where Ash and friends are staying. And through this power that Latios and Latias have, what's it called? Sight sharing, screen sharing,
yeah.
sight sharing. She shows Ash and friends what's going on, so they can try to head over to the rescue,
to where Latios is captured and is being used to power in some way both the Soul Dew and the DMA. And using the power of the DMA, Oakley's all like power mad now, and she's just like, haha, I can control the world from in here, and is able to activate all sorts of defense systems in the city and like really mess things up, honestly, in unclear ways. Oh yeah, she can control the water. I forgot. She can literally make tides and stuff, and seems very powerful.
Yeah, but she also importantly shuts gates all over the city. So Ash escapes at the last second and is able to go try to help out, but Brock and Misty are kind of stuck at first. And they end up sending their Pokemon along through the gates to go help out so that Ash can make his way there.
Yeah, and then we have this chase where Annie and Oakley summon the evil fossil Pokemon of the past, Aerodactyl and Kabutops, who try to stop Ash from reaching them, but Ash like dodges everybody, and with the help of all the Pokemon,
and
finally,
Latias.
Yeah, and with the help of Latias, finally make it to the DMA, where Oakley is going like, haha, you can't stop me, and Bianca and what's his name? Lorenzo are both trapped there going like, no, you can't do this. If you do this, then all of the water will dry up. And sure enough, just around then, like, all of the water starts going away. Well, actually not quite yet. What happens is Ash and friends try to free Latios, and they basically succeed. And by smacking the orb prison, which orb prisons are a common theme in Pokemon movies, by tackling the orb prison, and Latias
uses some crazy power to interfere with it or something.
Yeah, and Latios does some crazy stuff too. They smash open the orb prison, and Latios pops out. And then the DMA starts going haywire. All of the water gets sucked out of the city, and the DMA traps Oakley inside. They're like, we don't know what to do. What's going on? And Annie's like, all we wanted to do was steal this gem. I don't know why you had to do this. And then they realize that all of the water's gone, but Lorenzo says, but the water's gonna come back, and they go outside and they realize that the water's coming back in a massive tidal wave that is going to sweep away the entire city, and it's destroying like entire islands on its way here. It's a really large tidal wave. And so at that moment, Latias and Latios like, you know, communicate with each other, and they're like, we have to save the city, and they shoot out towards the tidal wave. And then at that moment, Latios decides to sacrifice itself, or actually they both do like this magical thing, basically Latios turns into this giant pillar of light going into the heavens, and like a new soul dew kind of like appears from there, and Latias says like, goes like sad sounds like indicating that like she thinks that Latios is dead.
Sad airplane sounds.
And so the water, you know, like the tidal waves are stopped by this magical like power. The water returns to the city nice and calm. And at the last moment, they sight share one more time to see Latios ascending into space, into Poke Heaven.
They're like receding really far away from the Earth, like really far.
Yeah, like so far. They're sight sharing Latios, who is climbing into the heavens through this pillar of light, and just disappearing until it's gone, and all they have left is the soul dew. And then she's like, "Oh man." And they're all like, well, I guess we saved it, but at the cost of Latios' life. And so that's basically it. And then they, you know, arrest Annie Oakley in the credits, and then Ash and friends sail off, but not before a mysterious girl who is either Bianca or Latias goes and kisses him on the cheek and gives him a parting gift of a painting of him and Pikachu. And they sail away, and it's like, oh my gosh, was that a Pokemon? It was definitely Latias. Because Bianca is not into Ash at all. Is usually yelling, like, you know, sort of acquaintances at best in the movie. And then Ash and friends sail away, and that's the rest of the movie. I guess the last thing that happens, though, is that you see Latias and two Latioses flying into the distance, and we're like, what? So I guess, you know, there's some new Latios kids or something. So that's the movie.
So that description may have felt a little tumultuous, and that is part of the reason that I think this movie was ranked so low originally. Is that it's a little bit confusing. It is not that exciting, quite frankly.
No.
You don't really feel the tension or the excitement.
But there clearly is some tension and excitement.
Yeah, there is some tension and excitement, but I don't think it is effectively brought into the audience.
I think, at the time when we watched this movie, we watched it soon after Pokemon 2000, which was kind of our low bar at the time. And we were like, oh, wow, a Pokemon movie, you know, with characters, with, like, pacing. It's, like, structured in, like, a movie sort of a thing. Which was cool. But at the same time, it was kind of a slow-paced and boring movie with no Pokemon battles and not that many cute Pokemon. And, like, it was a movie, but not really especially, like,
and
compelling.
And a little confusing. You know, doesn't feel like it has a very snappy flow of plot.
It has not much momentum at all. Which
so
led us to rank it, like, you know, in the top of, like, one of our lower tiers.
One of the last two tiers.
Above Genocide, Hoopa, 2000, and Ranger.
Our experience watching it again, I really forgot how confusing the plot was. There were a lot of moments where I was like, are we supposed to know why they're doing this? Are we supposed to know why Annie and Oakley why are they using this machine? I thought they just wanted the soul dew. Why are there two Latioses at the end? Why is Latios sacrificing itself? There's just a lot of, like, questions about the kind of core plot that come up while you're watching it. It feels a little confusing, I would say.
It just kind of is a little...
That's my biggest thing.
A little rambling. Like, I think when I watched it this time, I could see how I felt that way before, but I was at least entertained enough with the way that it went. Like, you know, people act with conviction. I think the voice actors were like quite experienced at that point. I think the characters of Annie and Oakley were pretty like distinctive and like well like realized, I would say. And so like it really does have all of the features of a movie, but it did feel ultimately a little bit rambling.
Yeah, I really feel like Alex and my contributions to that very meandering plot description really is the experience of watching the movie. It's kind of hard to remember what flows into the next thing, so it's hard to remember what happens in what order, because it doesn't really naturally flow into like the next part of the movie. It just feels like a lot of things are happening sequentially, and you're not really sure why most of the time.
I think this is the movie where like Ash is like running through like the streets of Italy, and they're like so excited about the 3D effect that they had.
They had a really long shot that was just looking at the streets in 3D, like a really long shot,
like a old like Windows 95 like maze or something like that, where they're just like running through this 3D maze of streets, and it's.
But your point about the characters is true. Like the characters are really, there's good Ash, Brock, and Misty content, I think, definitely. For all of them. Misty wins that race at the beginning, which is like very like, in character.
Yeah, appropriate.
Very appropriate. There's some like cute moments with like Latias and Ash. I think one thing they do really effectively is kind of showing us the relationship and the communication between Latios and Latias, which without them actually talking like most of the legendary Pokemon do. They literally only communicate through
airplane speech.
Oh, my cat just looked at me very alarmed when I made that sound. But they do a really effective job of showing us like exactly what they're communicating to each other and what their relationship is. So the movie does have a lot of strengths. That the ones below it don't. So that's why it's not like at the very bottom.
Like none of the characters are like particularly deep or anything, but they're well realized, which is to its strength.
So watching it.
No, that was kind of what we felt like watching it again. We just went into that, like how I felt.
Yeah, so watching it again, I would say I felt mostly the same and a little more confused than I remembered.
Yeah, I mean,
mostly.
Like I was saying just now, like watching again for me, it was just remembering that, like, hey, like there are good features about this. It's not as rambling as I remember it, though it is pretty rambling. The characters were well realized, so that's kind of how I felt.
So, re-ranking. I am going to rank this below the Hoopa Ring movie. I think we really were harsh on the Hoopa Ring movie the first time we watched it, because so much of the movie is fun legendaries fighting, but it does have a much more cohesive plot than the Latios and Latias movie. It's very easy to see how things flow into each other. You don't find yourself asking what's happening, which is really a thing that you do find yourself doing during the Latios and Latias movie. But I'm still ranking it above Genesect and Mewtwo Want to Home.
Yeah, definitely.
Because even though that movie might have a technically stronger plot, this movie was certainly like more entertaining. There was more narrative tension.
It had a better like structure of its plot. Like, sure, theoretically, like the theme of Genesect is like strong with like, like humans and Pokemon and like, trust and stuff like that, and home and the 3 million years, whatever. Whereas in Latias, it's just like, hey, don't steal things, and also we're heroes, Pokemon heroes. So like, sacrifice, like the themes are not like particularly strong, but like all of the characters are just so well realized. You really can't compare two on that level.
Its strengths make up for the meandering plot, I think. In a lot of ways, but not enough to put it above the Hoopa Ring movie.
Yeah, which is odd, because like I feel like the Hoopa Ring movie, like everybody is just so cartoonish. Like everybody is so like half-baked as a character. Like you can't really say anything about Mireille or Baraz other than they're reasonable and love having fun with Hoopa. Versus like
I don't know. I feel like their relationship with Hoopa is very
heartwarming, but it's like drawn in like broad strokes. It's very like
sometimes that's effective.
Yeah, and I think it is effective.
Yeah.
And so that's why I am also gonna rank Hoopa Ring above Latios and Latias Pokemon heroes, because despite the fact that, you know, originally I was like, Latios and Latias is like a real movie. Hoopa Ring is like a silly, like, fever dream, like, comic sketch, basically, like, was my original feeling. Upon rewatching it, I'm like, you know, Hoopa Ring actually, you know, it takes all of the things that it wants to say and delivers it in kind of a more of a fun and lighthearted package than traditional movie plot arcs feel like it should.
Yeah,
like
it's way more of a real movie than I think either of us remembered.
Yeah. It like shows it shows that, like, you know, you can make a movie and it can be a real movie without having to have, like, oh, like, here's the, you know, like, trope of, like, oh, here's, like, a mystery at the start and we'll go uncover and then we'll, like, you know, it doesn't have, like, all of the rising falling action quite as, like, you know, tied up as Latios and Latias does, but it does have the movies, like, it does have, like, you know, the relationships built up and the themes, all of that sorted out, like, just in time to get there.
I think really what it comes down to for me is that it's a lot easier to enjoy a movie when you're not when you don't constantly feel like you've missed something, or you're trying to catch up, or you're not really sure why a certain character is doing what they're doing. It's a lot easier to enjoy a movie when that's not the case. Any last thoughts before we move on to our last movie?
Not really.
I actually have one last thing. If anyone knows why there are 2 Latioses at the end of the movie, please tell us, because we're really not sure.
Yeah, we're really not sure. Also, I like the thought that one of those Latioses and that Latias do then show up in the Hoopa movie.
Yeah, that was the other thing, because we were like, because we watched the Hoopa movie first, and we were like, oh, it's the Latios and the Latias from that movie. Both of us having forgotten that Latios presumably dies at the end of the movie. Yeah. So we're like, oh, I guess it's one of those Latioses.
Yeah, because in the Hoopa movie, there's actually a small like snippet showing the Latios and Latias flying through the canals of Altamare.
So that's clearly where they're from.
Proving that Hoopa dragged those Latios and Latias.
It's not like a different Latios and Latias. It's the ones from there.
Straight from the 5th
and
movie.
They seem to recognize Ash in some way almost. So I don't know. That's another question. So if anyone has answers to those questions, please let us know. I
mean, they could have done better if they had 2 Latioses and a Latias.
Yeah, that's true. Movie. Maybe that would have... I think the movie would have ended sooner.
Yeah, I know. Hoopa movie. Not enough legendaries, actually.
Right.
Okay, so
Ready to move on?
Yeah, so that's our first, like, you know, re-ranking in a different order. The Hoopa movie moving up in the world.
Yeah, really.
But can it beat the next movie on our list, Pokemon The Rise of Darkrai? And I just want to say that, like, I find it funny how, like, these movies all have, like, some subtitle, like The Rise of Darkrai or whatever, but they kind of just alternate between saying Pokemon the movie, The Rise of Darkrai, or Pokemon 5, The Rise of Darkrai, you know, like, whatever. Yeah. And this time it's just Pokemon : The Rise of Darkrai.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's some similarities and differences between this movie and the Latias, which made me a little confused in the previous summary, so I'll try to keep it straight.
Yeah. It's easy to kind of mix these all together sometimes. Yeah.
So
I'll help you out.
This is the first Diamond and Pearl movie, so we have Ash, Dawn, and Brock coming to the city of fake Italy of a different kind. Alamos Town. I remember that now.
Okay.
Alamos Town. So.
Thanks, Bulbapedia.
Yeah. Ash, Dawn, and Brock show up in Alamos Town. And this is kind of rough. I'm pretty sure they immediately kind of like meet this girl named, blonde-haired girl named.
Jeez, what's her name?
Alice.
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 That's her name. That's right, Alice. So
that was
Alice,
out of my brain, by the way, not Bulbapedia. Right,
Alice flies them over on a hot air balloon with a Chimchar over to this
town.
I guess island. It's like an island, but it's on a big cliff.
Yeah.
So I guess it's an island. It's just kind of a really tall island.
Yeah. So Alice flies them over to Alamos Town and is their first little guide. And so Alice says, hey, let me show you around town. Alice takes them to a Pokemon battle with 3 of the fully evolved starters.
Yeah.
Alice takes them to...
Yeah, a lot of the movies have this intro thing where they play a remixed version of the anime theme song of the time while Ash and Friends' Pokemon either battle or like run around having fun.
Yeah. They were actually on a tour this time, and the battle happened without the song. Oh, no, it did happen with the song. Never mind.
Yeah.
I was getting mixed up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Alice then takes them to this garden where she's like, hey, this is an important garden where a bunch of Pokemon are playing. And, like, some of the Pokemon, like, get into a little cute little fight. Like, Pikachu, Piplup, and some Meryl and stuff get into this fight in the playground. And she's like, I'm going to calm these Pokemon down because they've literally formed gangs and are fighting each other.
Yeah.
And so she takes this leaf and starts playing this song on her leaf flute. And that calms all the Pokemon down. It's like, oh, what a beautiful song. And then Alice is like, okay, let's continue the tour. And then she takes them to, they keep moving through the garden and then get actually interrupted by this dude.
Baron Alberto.
Who's
like clearly meant to look and act like a total jerk.
Yeah. Who's just like, haha, Alice, when we getting married, huh?
Yeah.
Basically is the first thing that she says. He says, and then this other guy whose name is
Tonio.
That's shows
her
up.
childhood friend, Alice's childhood friend. Yeah. He's like a nerd.
Yeah. And Alice is like, no, I like Tonio. Ha. And Alberto's like, ha ha ha, you're joking. Anyway, at that point, I'm pretty sure they noticed Darkrai for the first time.
Yeah, they think, they're like, oh, Darkrai's here, because everyone knows that Darkrai lives in this garden. And, and Alberto's like, we have to attack Darkrai. Because he's a jerk.
Yeah. So they see some like pillars kind of like warped, and they're like, this is the work of Darkrai, and they attack Darkrai, who shows up in this forest, and Darkrai's like, oh, and dodges the attack by Baron Alberto's Licky Licky.
Yeah.
And then shoots a ball at Licky Licky, who dodges it, and the ball hits Ash, and so Ash seems to get sucked into this weird world where nobody's around, and then the ground starts warping. Pikachu and he gets sucked into this hole, and then Palkia seems to scream at him.
Yeah, and like whoosh through him like a ghost.
Yeah.
And then he wakes up in the Pokemon Center with Nurse Joy, and everyone knows Darkrai. They're all like, oh man, this was Darkrai because Darkrai causes nightmares. That's why everyone stays away from Darkrai.
Yeah.
And Ash is really mad. He's like, we gotta get Darkrai.
Yeah. But then they're like, yeah, sorry about that. And then they continue their tour, and then they go to the big towers. There's
the space-time towers.
2 giant bell towers.
Really tall.
Yeah. Called the Space Tower and the Time Tower. And they go all the way to the top where they find this kind of like carillon piano thing. And she's like, hey, let's play a song on it. And then they play...
With these giant discs.
Yeah. They stick a giant disc into it to play the carillon song. And they're like, wow, that's amazing. And then they go down. And there's like throughout this part, there's like cutaways to Tonio in his lab going like, there's something going on. He's
like clearly supposed to be like a nerd researcher guy. So he's reading old diaries from Alice's family, because Alice's family goes way back, that specifically have to do with Darkrai.
Yeah. But at the same time, we're seeing cutaways that Dialga and Palkia are in this weird space fighting each other too.
Yeah.
And then we go all the way down to the courtyard again after they visited this tower, and then Darkrai shows up, and he's just like, you shouldn't be here, and then he starts like shooting stuff all over, and they're like, and then they start to fight Darkrai, and then Darkrai's dodging everything, and then suddenly this huge white light like explodes between the space and time towers. And I kind of don't really remember what happens after that.
So Darkrai attacks back all of the Pokemon.
Yeah.
And they all end up in this like weird dream state where their souls are like floating around the city.
Yeah.
And it's really creepy. There's like a bee barrel just like wandering around in space. So everyone's really pissed at Darkrai.
Yeah, so they're all in the Pokemon Center, and there's like ghosts everywhere, like ghost-looking things everywhere. And then Tonio finds out that the dream world is merging with the real world, and so people's like dream like states have escaped from their bodies and are floating around. They're like, we need to deal with Darkrai in order to fix this problem.
And Baron Alberto in particular is hungry for blood, and so goes to attack Darkrai. Darkrai instead does some weird thing that turns Baron Alberto into a Licky Licky.
Yeah.
This is the most important part of the movie.
Yeah. And now I'm a Licky Licky. Which is really cute.
Yeah. It's very cute.
He bursts into the Pokemon Center. They're all just like, we have a problem here. These ghosts are everywhere. He's like, I have a problem. I'm a Licky Licky.
Yeah.
And they're just like, I don't know what's going on. And then a bunch of people show up and they're like, we have another problem. And then they're like, apparently we can't escape the town. There's a giant fog keeping everybody in.
Yeah.
And then so they Ash tries to run out of the town through the fog, and then immediately just turns back around and
even though he's running straight through, he ends up running back towards the town.
So there's no way out of the town. There's ghosts, and everybody thinks it's Darkrai's fault.
So they all march off to go attack Darkrai, but
Tonio's like, I don't think this is all Darkrai's fault. Because he's like, I think Darkrai's good. He saved Alice's life when she was a kid, apparently.
Yeah.
So he's like, I don't think it's his fault. And everybody's like, I'm pretty sure it's Darkrai. We're all marching for Darkrai blood.
But Ash and Dawn and Brock believe Tonio and Alice.
Yeah. And so they walk back to the courtyard where they're expecting to try to deal with Darkrai or something. And literally, I'm pretty sure at this point, Palkia explodes out of the space-time continuum somewhere into the courtyard.
Yeah. Shortly
followed by Dialga.
Yeah. And they for the rest of the movie, they are fighting, clashing above everyone. So Tonio basically ends up figuring out that that this diary, this stuff left by Alice's grandmother, Alicia, basically showed that she saw a vision, right?
No, it was Godi, the guy who
Godi
built the towers.
Her dad?
Alicia's husband, so her grandmother's
husband,
or her grandfather.
So the guy who built the towers had a vision, right?
Yeah, had a vision of this happening in the future, and so saved them a song called Erasion, which was passed from grandmother Alicia, who was once friends with Darkrai, to Alice, who now played that song. And that was the very song that she played on the leaf flute to calm the Pokemon down.
So they figure out what they need to do is they need to play Erasion, the song from the big tower before with the big discs.
Yeah. So they find out that Erasion is on this disc in the tower, and they figure out where it was. It's kind of hidden in some of the art in the lobby, basically.
Yeah. So ultimately, Ash and Dawn end up having to try to run up the tower, this very long spiral staircase, while the city is kind of collapsing around them, because they realize that Palkia has brought the city into its own kind of little bubble of space.
Yeah.
And as Palkia and Dialga clash, according to Tonio, it brings the city closer and closer to just being evaporated out of existence.
And the reason that they're clashing is, we're not really sure why, but they're never supposed to meet each other, and now that they do, they're just continually at each other's throat, Dialga and Palkia. So they're going up this tower. They're really in a lot of danger all the time of falling way. Many of them fall off the tower and get caught at the last second.
Yeah, because things are evaporating around them.
Yeah, the staircase is evaporating. Their hot air balloon is getting exploded by Palkia's thing. And then eventually they make it to the top of the tower. And they basically put in... And I feel like, did I miss something at this point? No,
I don't think so.
Basically, they're just continuing to fight. Oh, no, the important part is that Darkrai is trying to buy them time at this point, because every single time Dialga and Palkia clash,
it brings it closer to being destroyed. So Darkrai has been fighting Dialga and Palkia, trying to attack them, trying to block their attacks from each other.
Yeah, fighting, but more trying to prevent them from fighting each other.
So at one point, it puts them in this big bubble.
Yeah, so
in this big Darkrai bubble.
Dialga and Palkia try to shoot gigantic blasts at Darkrai, who's standing between them, and then he stops their attacks and puts them into a giant bubble where they're stuck. But Darkrai's I can't hold them forever.
Yeah.
And then the bubble shatters just as Ash and Dawn are just about to get to the top, and he's I'm not able to stop them. and Dialga and Palkia shoot giant beams at Darkrai, who explodes, and out of the clouds you see Darkrai flying out into the sky and evaporating into the space-time dust that happens.
So Ash and Dawn use Pikachu and Pachirisu's electric power to power the organ thing.
Yeah, Caroline
organ piano thing. And they manage to play the song.
Yeah.
Which calms Dialga and Palkia down.
And repairs Palkia's gem.
Yes. Importantly, the Palkia's shoulder gem was cracked, and Steven Universe was not there to save it. So
yeah, so that was probably the reason that they were fighting, is because Palkia's gem was cracked.
I think that's the idea.
And then they hear the song Erasion, and are calms down, and they return to. Dialga returns to like the space-time zone or something into the next movie, which we'll talk about next time.
Yeah.
Flies away into the next movie.
But yeah, they're returned to where they were before.
But before Palkia escapes, Dawn and Ash are just like, look at what you did!
Yeah.
Fix this!
Yeah, which Palkia does.
And Palkia's like,
immediately.
You're a good point.
Yeah. And then at the end, they're all mourning Darkrai. They're all like, oh, thank you, Darkrai, for giving your life. And then Pikachu sees out of the corner of his eye a little shadow on the wall, and they turn around and they see Darkrai. He's back, and he's gonna protect the town. Again.
Yeah, the Dark Knight that the town needs, standing on the top of the space-time tower.
Yeah, it's very Batman.
It's very Batman.
Okay. So
that was the movie. It was like, it had plot, but it didn't feel winding in our description, like in the sense that it was all like basically leading up to.
Yeah, I think this is a great example of our description not matching how the movie felt, because I think our description was again a little meandering, but the movie did not feel that way.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that I don't know if our description made that make any sense, but it was basically all leading up to this clash with Dialga and Palkia. And yeah, so I guess maybe we should talk about where it was ranked before.
Yeah. So I had it ranked at the very bottom of the next tier up. So once again, in the original list, we had a very bottom tier, we had a second bottom tier, and now this is the first one in the tier above.
Yeah.
But it was at the very bottom of my list. What I remember ranking it is that there's a lot of battling, there's a lot of things going on at one, all the time. It is a little bit not confusing, but there's just so much going on, so many kind of threads to follow that you can't really like grasp at them. I think for a lot of these movies that are more in the middle, it's going to get harder to talk about why they were ranked where they were, because a lot of them are just very middling, Well,
I mean, I kind of remember why I ranked it where it is.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing about this one is that it was actually pretty high up originally, the Darkrai movie. I remember watching it and I was like, oh, this is like one of the first movies that I'm seeing that like didn't truly inspire me, like a few of the Gen 3 movies, like the Deoxys movie and all of that stuff, or the Entei movie. But it's like a solid movie. It's definitely a movie. It's got pacing. It's got, all that stuff. It's a solid movie. And then weirdly, it like kept getting beat by other movies that followed it.
Yeah.
And so it wound up at the bottom of the middle tier, whereas it used to be like at the top of my middle tier, like before.
Yeah.
It's not like a great movie, but it was like a really solid, entertaining movie. It had a flow. It has great licky. It has a lot of cute Pokemon.
And Alex actually had a different movie in between Darkrai and Latios movie.
Yeah, so I would say that the Arceus movie, which is the next movie that I think we're going to watch, and the next movie on in chronologically, was just below the Darkrai movie, but all other movies in this kind of like middling tier, I thought ended up being better than the Darkrai movie, surprisingly. To me, because I definitely thought it was a solid movie.
So watching it again, I think the biggest thing for me was that this is the first in our watch so far in this past week. This is the first time that watching a movie I've felt like genuine narrative tension as an audience member. Like I actually felt some level of like narrative anxiety when like Ash and Dawn were like racing up the tower, trying to like put the song in. Like I really felt like, oh man, I I hope they make it, you know, like there was some real level of emotion there that just wasn't the case in any of the previous movies.
And like stakes, right? Like, you know, sure, like the space-time continuum or whatever, and like Hoopa, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But like, you know, they started off by saying that like, hey, weird things are getting messed up around town. We need to get Darkrai.
They build it really well.
Now there's a bunch of ghosts floating around. We need to get Darkrai. Now we're trapped in this town, and this guy's a licky, which is always a great way to raise the stakes.
Yeah.
Is to make him. Unfortunately, he turns back into a human at the end of the movie.
Yeah. By the way.
To our great disappointment.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's a licky. Now the stakes are like, you know, higher and higher, and then now we have this huge clash between literally space and time as they're climbing this thing. It's really, you know, structured very well.
Yeah.
And I was more impressed of that than I was even at the time, which I was originally impressed with this as well. I find that the as a structure, as the narrative tension, the kind of like rise in action, falling action, all of that stuff, the strength of the climax, all of that stuff, really well done in this movie.
Yeah.
I think that I also just, you know, personally enjoyed like a lot of the characters. I always enjoy Piplup whenever Piplup's on screen.
Yeah, I was gonna say another strength of this movie that's almost cheating, I guess, in a way, is that having watched like all of the anime, I think Ash and Dawn have a really strong like peer relationship.
Yeah.
Frequently Ash is like the less mature of his companions, but not that Dawn is like immature, but like I think Ash and Dawn have a very great like equal partnership, friendship, pairing. And that really comes across in this movie, since they're both kind of equally helping each other to like try to get to the top of the tower. Like Dawn is like using her Pokemon to like patch up the staircase as it like, you know, gets destroyed. They're really like working together in a very convincing way.
Yeah, Dawn and Ash are great partners. There's this kind of like, you know, love triangle, which, you know, we all see where it's going, but like it's not a big deal.
With Alice and Tonio, and
Tonio
it's cute.
And Baron Licky.
It's cute enough.
It's cute enough. Like, so like the characters are well drawn, the pacing is good. I found that I enjoyed all of those things more than I thought. So like basically, if I were to say that before, I thought that it was structured in a way that it made it more than the sum of its parts, which I still agree with. I also find that the parts are really good too. Mm-hmm. So I feel like this is a movie with great, you know, ingredients, like great, you know, like, you know, lines, great like moments, great characters, and the whole movie is structured in a way that is more than the sum of its parts because of the way that it's paced and all of that stuff. I find that also the parts are great is what I found more so this time around.
Yeah. I would also say that you know, there are still some things that I can kind of like nitpick at it, which is why it's not up in the like amazing movie tiers or anything like that. It's, you know, there's still things that I can say, well, like, you know, Brock didn't really do anything. Some of the Baron Licky stuff seemed a little like pushed in. Another thing, I don't think we even mentioned our normal Team Rocket in the previous movie, but Jesse and James, they were there in the previous movie. They were also here in this movie, just kind of saying, we're going to catch Darkrai, and then they followed Baron Licky around a bunch.
And didn't do
anything. So there's still some things that I, you know, can nitpick about, which is why it isn't higher. But overall, you know, it's an enjoyable experience. I didn't feel like I was waiting for the movie to end at any point. No. Which is amazing because this one's like an hour and a half. It's on the longer end. But they really fill the time pretty effectively for the most part. Although I will say there are some moments like at the end when they're all mourning Darkrai, they have a maybe like it feels like 2 minute full 2 minute like flashback sequence of things that happened like 10 minutes ago in the movie. Yeah. So I almost wonder if maybe they were trying to fill a certain amount of time or something. Yeah. But overall, like, you know, you don't feel impatient for the movie to end. You really feel genuine narrative tension. The new characters they introduce are great. I will also say that Alice's hair makes her look like Isabelle from Animal Crossing, which is fun.
And she has a great outfit.
Or at least a dog. She looks like she has like dog ear hair. Yeah.
She has a fun, like, kind of sporty look with like a bell-bottom jean.
Yeah, I really like
bell-bottom cargo pants kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
And Baron Licky is a licky.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always good.
For the times that he's not Baron
Seeing
Alberto.
a licky being very serious and commanding.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
I think that the strength of like the middle tier is going to be a lot of movies which we'll enjoy, but we won't like really be
not
dying
gonna be blown
to go
away by.
Yeah, like we won't be dying to like show somebody like,
Yeah.
like I like, like this licky for the time that I'm watching this movie, but I'm not gonna say like
go out of your way to say,
go out of your way.
We need to watch this movie, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that it's a good movie, but not something I'll go out of my way to watch, which is really what propels some movies to the top.
Yeah, which eventually we'll get to.
Yeah, I'm just cracking up thinking about like I Choose You out there. Just like I guess you had to watch this movie. Anyway, we'll explore those thoughts when we watch that again.
Okay, so
where are we ranking this, Gigi?
So I'm keeping it in the same tier, which I'm currently calling definitely a movie.
Yeah.
Although I might change the name or maybe make an additional tier. Keeping it kind of where it was at the bottom of the next tier. Or in the next tier. I guess we'll see if other movies end up below it.
Yeah, and I think I'll agree with Gigi, and so that makes our lists the same so far.
Which is pretty amazing.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah.
I think this rewatching thing is pretty effective.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Arceus movie, like making us clash.
Because I think in a way I felt about the Arceus movie the way that you felt about the Hoopa movie, where I was like it's the bad parts of it are really funny to me in a visceral way, and so I ranked it higher than you.
Yeah, so we'll see.
But we'll have to see.
If that's next episode. So for now, I'm also going to have this a tier above the other movies that we talked about, and a tier that I'm calling It Is a Movie. It is definitely a movie. Yeah, I feel the same way. It's just like, this is what watching a movie is like. It's like you kind of remember.
Yeah. You feel some tension at some point. There's like a climax.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty low bar, but there's 5 movies below that. So.
Yeah, 5 movies that aren't really a movie.
That don't really hit that bar.
No, not really. And so unless, any of the movies above it on the list manage to severely disappoint, we have like kind of 2 tiers sort of locked down in a way.
Yeah.
And those are the, for me, entertaining enough tier, which stars the Hoopa movie at the top, followed by Latias, and then Genesect, and then Pokemon 2000, and then the tier on the bottom by itself, Pokemon Ranger.
Yeah, the bad tier.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's our list so far. It's the same.
Yeah, and with
upcoming.
the only real notable change that we've done from our previous list so far being the step down of the Latias movie and
the step up of Pokemon 2000.
Oh yeah, out of the bad tier.
Out of the bad tier.
Yeah. The 2 big notable changes are the swap between Latias, and Hoopa, and then the 2000 like climbing out of that
But it is
hole.
nice to see that I feel like for the most part our ranking upon first watching is pretty
close to the mark.
Pretty close to the mark.
Yeah. I think that I feel like I need to apologize in some way to all of, like, the Pokemon 2000 stans, like, where we were, like, really brutal to that movie.
I mean, yeah. We were maybe a little too brutal, but to be fair, it is still second to last.
It hasn't actually changed in the space where it is.
Yeah.
It's just, we're acknowledging
We've admitted that it's closer in quality to the second to last tier than to Pokemon Ranger.
It's closer in quality to Genesect than it is to Pokemon Ranger. Nothing can be similar to Pokemon Ranger.
So, upcoming, we've got 3 movies. The next movie we will watch is Arceus and the Jewel of Life. Followed by...
I'm pretty sure it's called Giratina and the...
I really should pull these up before we start.
Yeah.
Giratina and the Sky Warrior will be after Arceus and the Jewel of Life. Still don't know what
the Sky Warrior is. I'm pretty sure I didn't at the end of that movie.
I think that's Shaman, because it
turns
changes into the Sky
guy.
Form.
Yeah. Okay, right.
And then...
Oh, oof.
This is where it gets a little tricky.
So, we have very vast differences in the upcoming movies.
I think the next one we should watch is Macaron Prince Victini.
Okay, yeah, because that's closest.
Because I think that's closest.
Feel. Yeah.
What's that movie actually called? It's not actually called Macaron Prince Victini.
It's Victini, and this is unfortunately the one with 2 versions.
Oh yeah, we're not gonna watch both though.
No.
Pokemon. This is Pokemon the movie Black, Victini and Reshiram, and Pokemon the movie White, Victini and Zekrom. I wonder which one we watched before.
I think that we watched the one with the... Oh god, but they're both in each movie. And they just swap the whether or not
I guess
each one
really
is truth
matter.
or ideal. So it doesn't really matter.
That's a whole other thing. But those are our next movies.
Yeah,
We've got Arceus and the Jewel of Life, Giratina and the Sky Warrior, and Pokemon the movie Black, Victini and Reshiram, or White, Victini and Zekrom.
yeah, so if you're following along, you can go ahead and watch those movies and see how they stack up for you. And we'll see if any of them, keep their spot here in the middle tier. At this point, we're starting to actually enjoy these movies a lot, fortunately.
Yeah.
So we'll see if they keep their spot in the middle tier or if any of them drop into the forbidden bottom two tiers.
Once again, please tell us if you know why there's 2 Latioses at the end of that movie. I really would like to know. So I have been Gigi.
Yeah, and I'm Walex.
And thank you for listening to the Pikachu Project.
Yeah, thank you.
Stay safe, wash your hands, and we will see you again soon.
Okay, bye-bye.